This week we're up on the Bay of Green Bay and we got absolutely a beautiful day. I can't believe how warm it is. We're gonna be fishing muskies today, which, you know, I love to fish anything, and this is just another species to throw onto the list for Cam. Last time we fished with him, he caught a bunch of big pike, a big bass. We really had some great success. We'll see what happens this week. A lot of times I love to cast for muskies, but two things. We've got Cam, even though he's as tough as nails, casting can wear out even a guy like me. So what we're doing is we're trolling, and the nice part about trolling is that you're covering a lot of water. We're fishing anywhere from 6 to about 20 feet of water. We're starting off early this morning. We're going between 6 and 8 foot. We've got, what do we got out here? We've got 8 rods set out right now, and we're covering a massive area, and we're working the water column. Even though, you know, we're only in 8 to 9 feet right now, later on we'll move out as the day progresses, move out into the deeper water. And what happens is basically these fish are following the shad and the perch and the suckers, and we're just trying to stay on the schools of bait fish and just trolling these baits right over the top of these fish. And we're trolling anywhere from about 3-6 to, I like to really crank her up some days, especially the water temperature. We got a really warm day today. The water temperature came up to about 58. I'll crank it up to about 4.5 miles an hour once in a while, especially around 10, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, and you're actually catching these fish on a reactionary bite. That bait's flying by them so fast they don't have time to think if they're hungry or not. Hey, stay tuned, let's see what happens. Hey, burger time. Hey Cam, you know what musky fishing's kind of like? Musky fishing is kind of like driving a vehicle. Like right now, we're like driving some 68 Chevy pickup truck with a 3-speed on the column. But when you get a muskie on, then it's like jumping into a Porsche 911. So it goes from one extreme to another. You know, we always talk about our trolling motor because it's one of the key tools on our boat. And when we're musky fishing, again, it's a very crucial tool to have because it makes things real easy, especially when you're setting all these lines out so your boat's not going this way and that way, is that I set it on autopilot and the boat goes straight. What I do is I get my kicker, I start my kicker up, and I'm running right around about 3.4 to 3.6 with it right now when I'm setting up. And then I hit my autopilot, and what I do is I have my motor going, and I usually put it on number 4, and it, you know, helps to keep the boat going straight. Of course, the more wind you have pushing against you, you know, the higher I'll turn it up. And the nice part about it is that when you're working a brake line, you know, you're pushing with the back, but it's hard to really stay on the brake line tight when you're pushing from the back because your front always wants to drift over. So all I got to do is take my remote and steer it left or right, whatever way I need to go to stay on that brake line. So again, it just makes it so much easier when you're using your kicker for the power in your trolling motor like the Tarova to go left or right and to keep your boat going straight so you're not constantly fighting it. You know, again, when you're setting the lines out, it sure helps out drastically when you're laying everything down there so you're not constantly trying to correct this when you're steering to go left or right. So that works out good. So good tip for the day is to make sure you got a good trolling motor. Don't try reeling. Yep, just let him go. Don't rip it out of him. Don't ever let that rod go. There he is. Ooh, is that thing bad? Just keep reeling.
He's way back there, Dan.
Ooh, that one's good. There he is. Nice fish. Really nice fish. Nice job. Woo! That is absolutely awesome. I need the pliers real quick. What are you doing with the pliers? 48 and a half. Here you go. Come on, Mitch. It's a golden day today, boys. Oh my gosh, you guys. This is absolutely crazy day. We've missed some other big fish. This is a 48 and a half incher. I'll tell you, what do you think?
You know,
Unbelievable.
I worked on a whale rig in Texas 6 months. That was way harder than those 6 months, getting that thing in there.
Well, let's get her back in the water. Oh my gosh. I told these guys, I said, you know what? Solar time. Solar time was at 11 o'clock, and guess what? He's complaining because we didn't catch that till 11 after 11.
It is true.
What we're doing today is we're out on the bay here and we're trolling. And we're trolling for muskies, obviously, using planer boards. And I like to double wrap mine. A lot of guys don't, even if with these clips on here, if it does come, it'll slide down to the bait. But I always double wrap the first one. And what you're doing is when you're using crankbaits, you know, like these little ernies, they'll go down to almost 30 foot with fire line on them. And we're only fishing from like right now 10 to 14 feet of water. And basically I'm running my baits from 6 to 12 feet down. And that goes by the amount of line you let out. We just caught that fish. We were running a little ernie, and I was running that bait back 16 foot, which puts that bait right at about 8.5, 9 foot. The closer I come into the boat, the deeper I run my baits, because I figure with the noise of the motor, even though sometimes, you know, you do catch fish right in the splash well, and I always run one right straight back in there. One thing about when you're musky trolling, if I was walleye trolling and pulling spinners for sure, I would never go into the wind when it gets to be this strong, because your baits are surging back and forth. You need to have everything consistent. But when you're pulling these big plugs like this and we're trolling at 3.5 to 4.5 miles an hour, you can keep them baits going consistently. Once in a while, you know, I will turn left to right to drop one side back a little slower or go a little faster. But the key is to make sure you keep your rods up high too, so you don't have all that line in the water, and keep them tight to the boards. And you know, that's the big thing. And a lot of guys, another thing is that a lot of guys like to run with their flags up. I put all my flags down because a lot of times when the boards start jumping like that, the flag will actually hook the other line, and then it'll come down and it'll wrap around it. So I don't like to run the flags. I don't see any reason myself. You know, again, if you're walleye fishing and you got tattletales on there, that means when there's a spring on there with a lever that when you get a bite, it pulls the flag back, you know you have a bite. But up on the Bay of Green Bay, most of the fish are big, the walleyes and a muskie. You don't even watch the boards for most of the time. They always call it a rip. All of a sudden you'll just hear that reel go zzz, zzz, like a salmon almost.
My name is Steve Hogler, DNR Fisheries Biologist. I'm stationed in Green Bay. I've been a DNR Fisheries Biologist since 1993. Most of my time was spent working on Lake Michigan, but the last 4.5 years I've been stationed in Green Bay, where I manage inland waters of several counties, but I also have the great fortune of managing the Green Bay walleye and muskie populations. Historic information indicates that back in the late 1800s and early 1900s, Green Bay was home to muskie. Over the next period of the 30 to 50 years, they were pretty much extirpated from Green Bay until we were left with none. After the Clean Water Act went into effect in 1972, and we started to see a turnaround in the fisheries, a number of restoration projects began to try to restore some of the fish populations that we had lost the previous 100 years. Walleye stocking began first in the mid-70s. That was highly successful. And then by the mid-1980s, we no longer had the stock walleye. Following walleye reintroduction, biologists of the time noted a lack of diversity of the number of predators in Green Bay. They wanted to restore a once popular game fish to Green Bay, and that was Muskie. The strain that we selected was the Great Lakes strain. This is a strain of Muskie that's found typically in the Great Lakes. It was most likely found in Green Bay, and we do have instances of that strain persisting in some Great Lakes waters, generally Lake Huron, Lake St. Clair, and Georgian Bay. We originally got the eggs for our Muskie program, which began in 1989 here on Green Bay, from northern peninsula of lower Michigan. Throughout time, we've tried a number of different egg sources, including fish from Georgian Bay, St. Clair, and the Detroit River. Currently, we're getting eggs from the state of Michigan. They're collecting their eggs from Lake St. Clair and the Detroit River. They're also very interested in restoring Great Lakes Muskie into a number of their lakes and streams as well. So the Great Lakes strain of Muskie, spotted Muskie, are very popular right now. We started stocking Great Lakes Muskie here in the Fox River in 1989. We also stocked some locations on Lower Green Bay and the Menominee River. For the first 15 years, we were stocking about 5,000 fingerlings a year. These fish were raised at Wild Rose and then stocked out in Green Bay in the fall. In the early 2000s, we had egg sources that included from the state of Michigan, but we also had some inland lakes that we're using for brood stock purposes. That allowed us to stock between 20 and 30,000 fingerlings a year. However, all this stocking stopped when the inland brood lake dropped out of the program and VHS showed up in the Fox River in 2007. From 2007 to 2009, we stocked very few fish. We stocked a few hundred yearling fish that we had gotten from Georgian Bay, but that was the extent of our stocking. In late 2009, we got approval from the Fisheries Board in Madison to collect broodstock once again from the Fox River. However, we weren't allowed to bring those fish to Wild Rose to be raised. We had to raise them at a satellite facility, which was the Kewanee Fisheries Facility. We had a couple of unused ponds over there, and we started to raise muskies there. Since that time, we have stocked about 5,000 fish per year from the Bizadney facility, and this year we were very fortunate. We had a large number of fish that we had received from Michigan last year that we stocked in the Fox River and Green Bay, and we put in about 6,000 yearling fish, and that's quite an achievement comparatively. That is more yearlings that we stocked in one year than we had stocked in the previous 25 years. So that was, or will be, a boon to the fishery in 5 to 6 years when these fish enter the fishery. Right now the fishery is dependent on stocking, although we have caught a few naturally reproduced fish in the Menominee River and over in Little Sturgeon Bay and Sawyer Harbor, and perhaps a few here in Green Bay. Their numbers are quite modest. There's probably just been a handful of natural recruits caught. To maintain the fishery, we have to continue to stock, and for the foreseeable future, that is our plan. On Green Bay, these fish grow very rapidly. They become approximately 40 inches in about 5 or 6 years, and by the time they hit 50 inches, they're probably 10 to 12 years old, and currently the size limit is 54, and it's probably 15 to 20 years by the time they hit that point. They grow very rapidly here because of the warm water and abundant forage. These fish have a variety of things that they can eat, anything from gizzard shad, alewife, shiners, minnows, suckers. So they have a very varied diet. We've done pretty well. Each spring we survey fish in the Fox River when we set our nets to collect eggs for propagation for Bizadney facility. The largest fish we've caught is just about 54 inches long. They've ranged in weight throughout time from about 15 to about 45 or 47 pounds. So these are quite large fish. They have great potential to grow because of the varied forage A lot of people think that perhaps in the future the next world record will come from Green Bay. I'm not sure about that. I certainly hope that Green Bay has a shot of having the world record fish. But the fish grow very rapidly here, and it seems like when fish grow very fast, they don't live a long time. The largest fish seem to be slow growing and live 30 or 40 years for a number of different species, including perhaps even muskie. Those are the ones that are the really large fish. So although Green Bay has very fast growth, their lifespan is fairly short, or at least it appears to be. So I'm not sure we'll produce a world record fishery, but we certainly hope that we have that shot in the future.
That's a monster. That's a big fish. No, just slow down a little bit. Look, it's a big fish, Cam. When he stops, start reeling, start reeling. Remember what I said about that 68 Chevy and then that Porsche? This is a big fish. That's the thing about musky fishing, is that it could be boring for a little bit and then all of a sudden it's pure chaos. Or, you know, look at me, I'm just shaking. You know, I do this every day and it's still, the excitement is unbelievable. That's why we do this. I can see the fish back there. It's a monster. See him up on the shore? See him? See him?
Yeah,
there he is. It's a monster. Keep reeling, keep reeling. Keep reeling, keep reeling. Keep going, my man, keep going. It's all worth it. Your arms burn? Do they burn? I love it when they burn. That's what it's all about. Okay, now put your rod tip down. Put the rod tip down. Oh, it's a big fish. Look at the size of that fish. Look at the size. That's a 15-inch fish. Oh my gosh, you guys. Look at the size of that fish. Oh my gosh! Whoa! Whoa!
Yeah! Yeah!
Look at the size of that fish. Woo! That is a 50-inch plus fish for sure. Look at the size of, I got the big kahuna net. I don't even know if it's big enough. Look at that fish, Cam, and look at, it's barely hooked. Oh, look at that giant, you guys. You know what something? Hey, you know something? I'm gonna tell you something. This is what it's all about. Catch and release on these fish. You know something? I can never see keeping a fish that size, because look at the excitement this thing is giving somebody. This is absolutely, Green Bay is a world-class muskie fishery, and if the DNR keeps stocking it like they are, it is definitely going to become the #1 fishery in the country for sure for muskies. This is a fish of a lifetime. I told them that today. Look at that fish. That is a magnum of all magnums. This is a giant, giant fish. Oh my, look at this. I am just shaking. And you know what? I've caught in a lot of muskies in this boat, but I'll tell you, every time it's such a new experience. This is, oh my God. Oh my God. This is, okay, move the net. Look at that. This is a world-class fishery, you guys. This is a giant. Cam, get right in front of me so you can see. Okay. Oh, look at that fish, you guys. You know, this is the big thing about when you're fishing out here, is that these fish are such a fragile part of this ecosystem, is that when you catch a big fish like this, you really got to make sure that you revive her well before you let her go, and you don't want to touch the fish a lot and wash the slime off her. I got this fish in the cradle right now, and I'm trying to bring her back. We've had her in here for about 10-15 minutes, and she's still not ready to release. You can't just throw a fish like this, flop it back in the water. The fish is going to end up dead, especially when the water temperature's still this warm. And this is such a big fish, and it was such a hard battle to get the fish in. You really, I mean, I'm telling you, I can't stress it enough. This is a 54.5-inch fish. This is a fish of a lifetime for anybody, even myself. that it's so important to release this fish the right way. Keep her upright, keep her facing into the waves. We got the boat shut right down. I can see she's just starting to get some energy back in her now.
We're gonna need a bigger boat.
All right. You know, that was absolutely, that was some pure excitement. And you know, I was telling Cam before, musky fishing can be very, very boring. And then all of a sudden it's high adrenaline. You know, it kind of reminds me of hunting. You know, you sit there and nothing, and all of a sudden this monster buck comes. But you know, the most important thing is we let that fish go. 54.5-inch fish, absolutely a monster. But I'm gonna tell you guys, it took us at least a half hour to revive that fish. We took a half hour, we got all the lines in, we're just sitting here floating. We put the fish in the cradle. If we would have just took that fish and shoved her over the side of the boat, she was so stressed out, she would have went down to the bottom, or maybe even laid up on top and been belly up, and that fish would have been dead. We made sure that that fish was strong enough to swim away on her own and go back down to the bottom. To me, besides you catching that fish, dude, letting a fish go of that magnitude is just as much fun as catching the fish. So, hey, you know what? I got an idea. Let's get these lines back out. Go!
Yeah.
You know, this day started out really slow, and then Larry went on a hunger strike,
That's what did it. I'm on a hunger strike again now.
and that changed everything.
Right?
And that culminated in Cam getting the biggest fish he's ever caught in his life, and myself getting the biggest fish I've ever caught in my life. Cam got a 54.5-inch muskie. I got a 48.5-inch muskie. Am I bitter about being outdone by an 11-year-old? Kind of. But you know, we talk a lot of trash about Larry. Being a mediocre guide. But after today, we're never going to disparage him again. At least not to his face.
I
Remember,
appreciate that
it's
word,
a great day to be alive.
Unless you're a muskie.
I don't even have any food in my hand, and it's still a great day to be alive.
Dad, what are you doing?
Hey, it was a tough day today fishing on Lake Winnebago, but I can't think of a better way to wind down and relax and sharpen my skills than reading the Badger Sportsman. It's a far from working experience.